Hi, you clicked on today's tropical tidbit for Sunday. Our little system here in the Southwest Caribbean continuing to fire off some clouds and convection this morning. Not too awful strong yet. There is a surface trough in here, but all the surface winds are still generally out of the east all the way to the north coast of Panama here. So the monsoon trough is lifting north, but there is no any semblance of a closed circulation trying to develop. But there is broad cyclonic turning in here, and this is going to continue to fester down here for the next several days. Wind shear is still greater than 30 knots across this whole area out of the west-southwest, and that's going to continue for about the next 3 days. I'd say by about Thursday we could start looking for some more significant stuff to go on down here, but for now it's just a mass of clouds teasing us as pressures start to lower in here. As the pattern starts to become more favorable, you'll start to see these cirrus clouds here lift a little bit farther north with time, eventually making it here and having this ridge balloon up. What's interesting is we've also got a couple of tropical waves getting involved in this situation. We have one tropical wave here moving into Colombia, and then you can see this one really well right here coming across the southern Antilles as a batch of showers. These two are going to be propagating west-northwest into this region, and it's that classic setup in the early season where you get tropical waves feeding into a festering area of upper divergence and surface convergence in the western Caribbean. It's a great setup for potential mischief that we're going to have to watch for over the next few days. Looking at the upper winds analysis, you can see this big positively tilted upper trough in here, strong subtropical jets screaming across. Notice the ridge is now building into the southeastern U.S., and what I've been talking about for the last few days is that this piece right here, this tail of this trough, is going to start backing west-southwestward beneath the flow of this ridge on the southern flank, and what that's going to do is that's going to allow this jet to become more oriented like this and build this ridge up, ballooning it in here, and start to lower the wind shear over this area of the Caribbean, eventually getting this upper ridge to balloon far enough that we could start to look for some development. This trough will be backing into a position to start feeding dry air into the back side of this system in the mid-levels, which will limit development potential here, probably make it a system that's weighted more on the east side of the low pressure area, typical of an early season system. Not really looking for it to get too awful strong here, but there's definitely the possibility that we could get a tropical depression or tropical storm out of this. The models have been really interesting and kind of all over the place. We've had some really strong runs, some really weak runs. The 0Z European last night actually wound this up pretty nicely, taking it up towards Jamaica and Cuba at 999 millibars by day 10. And that is day 10, which means it's been sitting there for quite a while on the model. It really takes its time moving it up to the northeast over here. You can see the upper cutoff low in here, which is ventilating the area by taking air out to the northeast. And just to scare the daylights out of everyone, the 12Z Canadian this morning decided to go bonkers with this system, showing a big hurricane, at least 990 millibars in here northwest of Jamaica over the Cayman Islands. This is an unlikely scenario. It's good to at least see the CMC doing its normal thing, but that's an unlikely scenario, the worst case scenario, which the Canadian is known for portraying. Some other runs have been weaker. The no gaps is way down here off the coast of Nicaragua and Honduras. It's been kind of all over the place too. The 6C run had a broad trough that made it up here, and it had more of the low pressure here and then scooted it out to sea. And that's one of the things I want to talk about here. By looking at this map, this is the day 7 GFS ensembles. Notice the big ridge over the central to eastern United States. We got the trough out here, and we got the cutoff low here that's ventilating the Caribbean. The GFS at this time has broad low pressure in here. The last couple of GFS runs have been very weak. It develops the low in here, then it takes a piece off this way, and then another piece way off this way, and kind of spreads out a low pressure trough all the way from the Gulf of Mexico to northeast of Puerto Rico. I think this is more reflective of the uncertainty in the models with the track issue on this, because it's going to be being pulled by this trough, but it's also going to be pulled by this. I think it's more likely to consolidate more in one of those directions and not get split apart in both and spread out into one big trough, but probably more concentrated in either direction. It's interesting to see that the models have trended more east with this trough as time has gone on. We've seen this ridge come a little bit farther east in here, likely because of this back here. This trough isn't willing to come much farther west. If it were farther back here like this, like the models were showing yesterday and the day before, it would be much more likely that this low would get pulled northeast into this trough across Cuba and Haiti and ended up over the southwest Atlantic. But with the trough showing up farther east now, it's more likely that with the ridge directly over the top, this gets stuck and meanders down here for a little bit longer and is more at the mercy of this upper low, which will be able to do basically anything it wants with it. It could punch in dry air and eventually kill the system with enough time of sitting down there, or it could have enough moisture to survive and just fester down here, and like the European has been hinting at, perhaps stay there and eventually make a move northwest, and that could provide the opportunity for the Gulf of Mexico to get some rainfall. Like I mentioned yesterday, the only way this is really going to move towards the United States coastline is if it sits there through next week, into next week, allowing this ridge to become flatter in here and start weakening, so that any kind of weakness coming from the north could help draw it north, along with this upper low in here helping to pull on it. If that doesn't happen, then it's either going to scoot into Central America or scoot northeast. But we'll see if the model trends on this trough position continue this way. If they do, it's more likely we're going to have a messier situation with this moving slowly in here, giving much needed rainfall to the northwest Caribbean islands, but at the mercy of this upper low, which these things are very unpredictable. The models are bad at predicting cutoff upper lows. And so we'll have several possibilities for what the system could do in this area. And of course, the intensity would vary depending on the upper level pattern as well. So overall, we've got a system that's trying to develop our first true tropical disturbance of the season. Not going to develop very fast. It's going to be like pulling teeth to get it to actually form and get named, as it usually is for a lot of early June systems. And there's several track possibilities with it. Go figure. There always are. But hopefully we'll get some rain for at least these folks in here, and there's still an outside chance that the Gulf Coast could get some out of this if this sits around until next week. It'll have to sit down there for a long time, so we got to be patient. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.